Okay, hi Rob. Welcome to our Horsefly virtual lounge here today, and thanks so
Well,
much for taking the time to talk to us. Now, as senior resourcing and TA leader and such an expert in the labour market, with your work in government departments and ensuring that the right skills and capabilities are all in place, we just wanted to talk to you about your experiences with the Horsefly platform, particularly gaining your insights on talent acquisition and workforce planning and that side of the work that you've done. So if we dive straight in and we start talking about what it was that led you to the Horsefly platform, and if there were any sort of particular challenges that you were facing at the time that you felt that it would be able to solve for you.
yeah, sure. Thanks very much, Jill. Nice to meet you. So, yeah, actually, I've been using Horsefly in different contract assignments over the last 5.5, nearly 6 years, actually, in a number of different roles. Initially, actually, it was just at the start of the pandemic. I was working for an NHS organisation, and we were desperately seeking, as lots of other organisations were, intensive care nurses, because at the time, with the coronavirus pandemic, people were ending up in intensive care, and it really was a life-threatening illness, and it was very much new territory, with everyone scrabbling around, if you remember, for respirators and ventilation equipment and so on. But just as important to operate that machinery and look after the patients in critical care and intensive care were appropriately qualified and skilled nurses. And that's where I found Horsefly to be really beneficial, because it helped us to locate the talent, some of which was not working at the time. That was quite important, because we didn't want to just poach other intensive care nurses from other NHS organisations, or even actually from private healthcare, because they had their place to play at the time. We needed to find talent that was qualified and experienced, but not necessarily working at that moment, and potentially we could reach out to them or identify them, to see if they could come into the NHS and work with us at this time of really urgent and desperate need, whether it was for our own organisation or in the spirit of all hands to the pump. We were happy to share with neighbouring NHS organisations as well, just for the sake of getting people into the workforce quickly and easily.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you for that. And yeah, really fascinating to sort of hear that role that the data could play, really. And like you say, not just poaching people and that competitive side of it, but yeah, being able to sort of like help. So that's great. Thank you for going into that. Any of the roles that you were in, were there any initial implementation goals that you had for the platform?
Variably, with NHS again, particularly, and also central government roles, there's often quite a long lead time to procure a new system like Horsefly or a new platform. So you spend a lot of time in anticipation of being able to use it. So when you do get the go ahead and you get implementation, thankfully Horsefly have been really quick, the implementation team, every time. But it's a case of can't wait to get stuck in and start using the platform now. So there's always a time, a sort of time bound. We're always looking to get this system implemented as quickly as possible, because we want to start taking advantage of it as quickly as possible. The real time sort of pressure one was in the NHS, like I previously mentioned. But in other departments, for example, one time I was working on a veterinary program. So, but this isn't the sort of fluffy kittens and puppies end of the veterinary industry. This was in the food industry. So we were looking at veterinarians to work in abattoirs and meat processing plants to ensure the welfare of animals. So far less glamorous and harder to fill roles, because quite honestly, those roles are not as well paid, and it's pretty hardcore. It's not particularly nice job. So again, finding that talent and using Horsefly to actually be able to fill these roles. For various reasons, there was quite an urgent need to uplift our resource in that space, not least of which was Brexit, which meant we'd lost a lot of international veterinarians who'd been working in the UK, and we had big gaps to fill thanks to Brexit. So finding veterinarians in the UK using the Horsefly software in terms of locating them geographically, aligning them potentially to where the sites were that we needed them to be able to work, and also figuring out the salary packages we were going to have to be able to offer to attract them. That's when we were really keen to see what Horsefly could offer. because that benchmarking of salaries we were able to do really was informative for us in terms of looking at what salary packages and other sort of non-financial benefits potentially in terms of licensing, education and master's degrees and so on we're potentially able to offer.
Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, that's sort of like the skills as well as the sort of job titles as well to look at. Great. So looking at the value that you got from the platform, what measurable improvements did you observe, and sort of how did you and those around you utilize the platform?
So the real value was a couple of things really spring to mind. First was agency usage. If we were able to find the talent for ourselves, we had less cause and need to use agencies to help us find talent. So there's obviously a cost saving there because whilst agency they have their place to play. Absolutely, I've been in that seat before. They have their place to play. Any organisation that can source its own talent is going to save money over using agency. But also, as I mentioned, the salary benchmarking, getting that right in terms of not offering too much, so you're effectively wasting money, and not offering too little, so you're missing out on talent and failing to attract it. That salary benchmarking piece was really, really important. So I'd say those are the two main benefits.
Great, thank you. Would you say, I was going to ask sort of the feature or the insight that you found most helpful, would you say that the salary benchmarking and that compensation side of it was particularly helpful in that role?
Absolutely, yeah. That's alongside mapping where the talent was geographically as well, because it's amazing how you have clusters around different areas of the country depending on the industry or the sort of profession you're looking for. It's quite interesting, actually, sort of personally as well, just seeing where these clusters of talent lie. And it's quite interesting to see how some people tend to stay in the university or city town where they did their degree and actually stay on, and you find clusters of certain talents around different towns and cities. So, but it gives an indication of where you can actually then go to try using social media and business media advertising to try to attract the talent to come work in your organisation.
Great. Yeah, that longitudinal side of it as well, like looking back and like where people have been and where they go, and that sort of journey that you start to see is really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Great, thank you. And then moving on to the evolving challenges and opportunities side of it. So, of course, with markets constantly changing and evolving at such speed, when looking towards the future, are there any particular wider use cases that you could imagine the platform being helpful for, maybe like future enhancements or anything like that you could think of?
I think the introduction of the new iteration of Horsefly, where they're overlaying the search results with artificial intelligence to sort of help enhance and make more sense of those results. You're getting much less in the way of raw data and more in the way of analysis presented as part of your search results. I think that's really helpful, and I know that's only going to improve. I think the core functionality of Horsefly, which is finding the talent and locating where it is, I think although remote working has definitely sort of been reversed in some areas to varying degrees, a lot of organisations are still looking at remote first. There's certainly a great deal of flexibility in terms of hybrid working. And I think certain sectors and industries will continue to benefit from and offer, and there are two sides to that. It's a benefit to the organisation as well as to the employee, that hybrid and flexible and remote working. At the end of the day, if somebody's able to perform their job remotely and they live in the Highlands of Scotland and don't need to be able to get to the office in London more than maybe once a year for a Christmas get-together or a summer party or something, then it really helps you to actually take advantage of the talent wherever it is, and not rely on people being within a commutable distance, which is where we were only really a few years ago, certainly up to the pandemic. A driver for finding talent was, is it commutable to where you want them to be? That's much less important now.
Right. Yeah. No, that's very true. And like you say, the AI impact side of Horsefly as well, it's really interesting to see where that can go. So obviously AI is going to have such a huge impact on most industries.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So finally, we thought it'd be interesting to discuss the current industry trends that may be affecting your talent strategy. Is there anything that you'd have to sort of discuss that?
Yeah, absolutely. So in my current role, we're doing a lot of technology recruitment and information security recruitment. That's a very challenging market. We've got you've seen the extreme salary packages being offered and sign-on bonuses by the likes of Meta, and that's really the outlier. But it has set the scene for a salary uplift across the information security and technology space. In civil service, we have a grading system and a salary system, which is agreed nationally. There's a little bit of flexibility around that in DDAT, what they call DDAT, digital data and technology, which look at certain roles and levels of skill and experience. You can pay a little bit more to attract the talent, but we really are challenged in terms of attracting that salary wise. That's why we've got to look at the big package, the overall package, and where we're able to offer remote first or hybrid working, perhaps 1 a day, 2 days a week in the office. That's also an advantage. But using Horsefly to actually identify where that talent is, you can really cast your net a lot wider. And at the end of the day, if somebody lives in location X and applies for a role knowing where our offices are and they might need to go in once or twice a week, then as adults we'd expect them to have calculated that and decided whether that's workable for them in the first place. But certainly technology roles at the moment is a real challenge. It's a challenged market. In London, we've got a lot of competition from fintech, from financial technology. So we're relying on other drivers for individuals, for candidates to come and want to work for us beyond salary. And actually, some of the work we're doing is incredibly exciting. It's cutting edge, has a real impact on citizens across the entirety of the UK. And we're looking for people who are bought into the mission, and the level of interest in the work is quite exciting and sexy, quite honestly, a lot of what we do. And that's worth more than just pure salary for a lot of people.
Brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Rob. Really appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us to talk through.
Thanks very much, Jill. Thank you.